Here's your two favorite gals who love talking cash. They teach you about dollars while making you laugh. When it comes to money, don't be slackers. Listen to Galia and Susan, Susan and Galia. Galia and Susan, they're the Fiscal Firecrackers. Yeah. Take it, ladies.
Bam!
Woo!
Hi, how you doing?
Hi!
I am Susan Yeagley.
I'm Galia Gishan.
And Galia is a Wall Street whiz.
Susan is an actress and a money enthusiast who loves Cheese Whiz.
Damn straight I do. So, Galia, you've always talked to me about taking calculated risks with my money, right?
That's right. That's right.
So this past weekend was my birthday, and I decided to take a calculated risk with my body.
What?
Yes. Okay, this is what I did. I went indoor skydiving. It was super cool and super fun. So for so long, I've walked by this place at Universal Studios called iFly, where you get into this container and a big fan blows you up, and there's a guy and he holds on to you, and you're up there swinging around like a Christmas ornament, you know? And it's so cool. And I've watched people do that, and I thought, that's what brave people do. Well, guess who became brave?
Wow.
Me. I went for my birthday, took some friends, and it was so fun. I was just bopping up there like popcorn, kind of like a lottery ball, you know, just bouncing up there. My God, it was fun. It was so fun.
Did you really feel weightless? Like, did you really feel like, I always imagine like the astronauts in the space shuttle, right? Like, did you really feel like no gravity and just completely?
Yeah, I felt free. And it tied into what I think our show is about is if you have the resources and you take calculated risks, you too can soar. You too can flip around and fly and feel weightless. And that's what you've taught me. So, yeah, it was, if anybody ever has an opportunity, if you're at a mini mall and they offer this stuff, please do it. You get to zip up. You feel like you're Buzz Aldrin. You know, you put on your spacesuit, you watch a cool video, you get in there, you flip around, they turn the fan on. You're like, oh, Beyonce is in the air and it's me. It was
sounds
so
amazing.
Cool.
Sounds amazing. And they should hire you, by the way, to do ads for them, because you're just selling me on it. So I'm sure you're selling a lot of other people too.
It's fun. You know, I've never even broken a bone. I never take physical risks. So this was
touch wood.
Touch wood, right. So this was a real leap for me. And I'm just so glad I did it. So,
well, I'm glad that you're talking about taking risk, because there is so much going on. So today we were talking about money magic during hard times. There are so many ways to define hard times. It can be as personal as a loved one getting sick who needs your help emotionally and financially, or much larger in world events that affect the stock markets. Most of these we don't have control over. But if you're prepared, you can handle these hard times or crises with more security and peace of mind. We will share so many tips today so you're equipped to handle your money by making good choices no matter the circumstance.
Yeah. So I live in LA, as you know, and I am so prepared for crisis. Is it crises or crises? Crises?
Crises?
Crises. So, you know, in my garage right now, I have a fire evacuation kit, an earthquake preparedness kit, a COVID survival package. I also have a divorce kit that it contains a prenup too, just so you know that. But what's happened is I have all these kits because in LA, you need this stuff. You know, and I'm from Tennessee, and originally in my childhood, we only needed a sewing kit, basically, because that's all you needed in Tennessee, because there's just tornadoes, and not just tornadoes. They are awful. And you have to hide in the basement with canned peaches and, you know, pickled foods that you've stored in your cellar. Tornadoes are awful, but they don't require the enormous kits and preparedness stuff that you need for a crisis. So what has ended up happening is that I'm embarrassed to tell you is that I've started snacking off of my kits. I go, the stuff, I have to tell, can I tell you some of the stuff that's in these kits now?
Yes,
for
I
crisis?
know.
Okay. So besides the basics, like there's a flashlight, a whistle, there's beef stroganoff that lasts 49 years. There's chicken flavored rice. There's a compass, a radio. I've got a pocket knife in different colors. I've got maple syrup, oatmeal, a tent that sleeps 4, gauze tape. Then I've got another kit My COVID kit has strawberry cream of wheat, hand warmers, razors, freeze-dried chocolate pudding that astronauts love, and banana chips that you can consume in hyperspace. So what ends up happening now, because I love all this stuff, and it's so exciting to go through my crisis kits, is that I just, at night, I throw it on the table for dinner, and then I just say, everybody goes, what are we eating? And I say, you're eating tsunami, earthquake, COVID. Just help yourself.
Oh my God, I shouldn't be laughing. I shouldn't be laughing. Okay.
But there's a lot of good kits out there. I'm just telling you.
No. And I'm actually going to go home and think about my kit. So growing up in Florida, we had our hurricane kit. But truthfully, I have nothing like that. But I do have a money kit for you. So let's get into our first tip. And this tip was really, really helpful, which we started during COVID. And I found that I did it again for a client last week, literally, that was freaking out about what was going on internationally. So here's the first thing, is that I want you to just really think about your cash flow over the next 3 months. And what I found is when I did this exercise with my client, I literally saw her shoulders go down. Because she said, I can handle what's going to go on for the next 3 months. So this literally says, what am I looking at my cash right now that's in my account? Mm-hmm. What income is coming in? And in this case, she doesn't have that much income coming in because she's a freelancer, some projects dried up. So she was able to say, okay, let's assume the worst, that I'm not getting paid as much. Mm-hmm. What are my expenses for the next month? That we know, that doesn't change. We can reduce it, but that doesn't change. And then what is my cash flow at the end of the month? And then let me do the same exercise for the next 3 months. So I know where I'm going to be in 3 months. And it just gave a little bit of security. It just gave enough of stability that they were like, okay, I can get through the next 3 months.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good. If anything, it's just emotionally feels so great to know that we're taken care of for 90 days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you, the confidence this person felt. And by the way, after we did this exercise, she emailed me a week later and said, yeah, I got another job. Yeah, I reduced some expenses, because it gave her the confidence to actually move forward and continue working on her finances.
What would be today a big expense you could wipe out? Let's say you're really gearing up for the next 3 months. Because of the world situation, what is one place that you can just easily cut back in?
So one exercise that I personally did this weekend because of what's going on in terms of the financial crises out there. And I thought, okay, I've got to practice what I preach. I'm telling all these other people to deal with their money. What can I do personally? And truthfully, what I did is I went and filled up my car up with gas, because now I have another teenager driving in my house, which means that my car is being used double because she's just driving and driving and driving. And then I went to go fill up gas, and it's literally gone up $1 a gallon in the last month. And so I saw that go up, and I thought, okay, what can I do to reduce my own expenses, especially for this podcast? And I tried a new exercise, and it was fantastic. So what I did is I did my grocery shopping on Instacart. And while you do have to pay a fee for Instacart, you will save that money tenfold for 2 reasons. So the first thing that I wanted to do when I went shopping on Instacart is I said, I don't want to spend more than a certain amount. And I was able to see the dollar amount of my groceries as they were being tallied up. And so I was able to easily make decisions and say, okay, I'm going to put that chicken back, or I'm going to look for a cheaper piece of meat, or I'm not going to buy the brand name pineapple salsa that I normally like. So I didn't impulse shop. I looked for things that were on sale. And by the way, I did it while I was watching TV and still in my pajamas. I didn't have to leave the house, which meant I was also saving money on gas.
God almighty, I go to the grocery store and I end up, so let's say I'm going for eggs. I end up getting birthday cards with tulips on them, a bar mitzvah card. Somebody on the way out hits me up for Girl Scout cookies, and I have to buy those. I'll go back in and get paper napkins. I'll get popsicles in the shape of president's heads. Whatever they got, that thing, the July 4th thing that's out, the popcorn balls with caramel. I will buy stuff that I don't need, and I come out just trying to get eggs, and I've got 36 things in my cart. Mm-hmm. So Instacart Absolutely. Is probably the best thing we should all be doing right now, right?
And the last thing that I did on Instacart too is I shopped at a grocery store I don't normally go to because it's half an hour away. And I don't like to go there because it's just a pain. I'm working full time. By the time I think about it, I'm like, oh, it's too far. It's a great grocery store, and it's a little less expensive than where I normally go. So I saved money by going to a less expensive grocery store. And by the way, I didn't pay for gas. I didn't have to worry about it.
Boom. Mm-hmm. Boom. Yeah, because if you have them deliver the groceries, it's their gas, it's their car, it's their maintenance, it's their car insurance they're paying, not us.
And for those of you that are freelancers and listening out there, I want you to think about this mindset too. That hour that I saved grocery store shopping, I could focus on making more money.
Wow.
I could also focus on what can I do for my business and earning. So not only did I save money, I could also focus on making more money. I always tell my freelancers to think like that.
Yeah, and I could use that hour to snack on my crisis kits in the garage.
Exactly.
Tuna fish that lasts 54 years.
Yes. Okay, so this is the other thing that I found during crises. And by the way, I've been dealing with financial crises really since I started working and graduated college. And there's pretty much one every few years. So I've actually, when this happened, I thought, this is terrible, and I definitely feel for the people that are being affected, but I'm prepared. I know what to do. And one of the things that I would suggest to you out there is you want to take an action item, especially with your investments and your retirement plan, that makes you feel like you're in control. Because when we see the market, I don't want to say falling, but when we see the volatility in the market, it went down, but then it's going back up, but then it goes down. So interest rates have potentially increased, then the market's going to be affected by that. What we're reading about in the papers or in the media is going to affect the markets. But we want to feel like we're in control. So here's some suggestions on things that you can do right away that makes you feel like, okay, I'm feeling confident about my money. I'm not feeling out of control. Like, maybe you're feeling like you're flying, but you're not free falling.
Right. And I love this book, The Genius Zone by Dr. Gay Hendricks. He's just a wonderful author. And he has this exercise, and it makes me think of what you're saying is we take two envelopes, and one envelope in red, you write things I absolutely cannot control. And then you have a separate envelope, things I can control, and write that in green letters. And then as worry thoughts come up, like the market, for example, I would write down the stock market, and I would put that in things I cannot control. But call my broker today and ask how I'm doing is something I can control, right?
Well, and I'll put something else in there. So here's a few tips right away that you can control with your investments. So I would say that very often we feel like we want to sell everything. And this is the worst time to sell everything because you're selling at the low. But I would suggest selling something. And I would say that on a percentage basis, sell something maybe that's less than 5% of your portfolio.
Your soul?
So it's well, hopefully you're not selling your soul too much with your investments, but
I'm an actor. I've been doing that for a long time.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say, selling your soul. Actually, I think my first job on Wall Street, I kind of...
We've all had some dirty weeks.
Yeah.
We've all had to do some stuff we're not proud of.
Yeah. There were some things that happened on the Wall Street trading floor that I probably, my soul was being tested.
Yeah. But in the meantime, selling a little something so that we have that 3-month nest egg, right?
Right.
To make sure everybody has that.
Yeah. And you also just feel like, okay, well, if I sell this one investment or if I sell a portion of this one investment, I just feel like I'm in control. I just feel like, you know what? It's not money that I'm going to watch go up and down. At least it's going to stay steady. But understand that practically you shouldn't sell most of your investments because you're selling at a low point.
Okay. So just a crumb.
Exactly.
Just a crumb of your stuff to make you feel confident right now.
Exactly. The second thing that I want you to do is look at your portfolio and rebalance it. And this is specifically for your retirement portfolio. So if you're working for a company, it would be your 401k at work. If you're working for yourself, it'll be any retirement money you've got saved in either your SEP IRA or your Roth IRA. Take this time and rebalance it. Because the market, again, has been all over the place. And so maybe say, what is the percentage of stocks versus bonds I have in my portfolio? And a very, very rough rule of thumb is your age in bonds. So the idea is that you really want to make sure that you have, if you're 40 years old, have about 30 to 40% of the portfolio in bonds. Mm-hmm. And so this is a great time to do that. And
just for the people like me who may not know what that is, what is a bond, James?
I've actually never heard that. So a bond is essentially a loan. A bond is, so for example, a government bond is when you're loaning the government money. So a bond is what's called a fixed term. So it's either 1 year, 10 years, 30 years. That's why a bond is also called fixed income.
Okay.
So it's income for a fixed period of time. So when you are buying a government bond, you're essentially loaning the government money for 1 year, 10 years, or 30 years.
Okay.
Those are the. Now, a bond usually has a fixed interest rate. So today it's going to be really based on the 10-year treasury. So it's going to be around 2.5%. So that is the interest rate on bonds, especially a government bond.
Okay. And so you should have a good balance of bonds and stocks.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And the reason that you want to have bonds is because on the whole, when the stock market goes down, bonds go up.
Oh,
They're
okay.
what's called an inverse relationship. And on the whole,
I used to have one of those in the 90s.
An inverse relationship.
I'd be happy, he'd be sad. He'd be happy, I was sad. Financial funnies.
Yes.
All right. So stocks and bonds, make sure you're balanced.
Yes. So that's a great time to stop and say, let me check my portfolio. And again, it's just the goal of this is just to feel more in control and more confident about your money when everything else is whoosh going all around you.
Nothing makes me feel more secure than having cash and having an emergency fund. That to me, cash is king, cash is queen, right? Having some money set aside, get out of Dodge money. It feels real good in my belly.
It does. No, it does. It does.
Yeah.
And, look, I happened to take some cash out of the ATM the other day, which I think, by the way, is the first time I'd done it in 4 months or 5 months. Like I forgot my PIN. I went up there and I was like,
Really?
where's my PIN again? Yeah, I don't take that much cash. I don't spend that much cash. I mean, we're more and more cashless society. I also don't go that many places. So it's not like I'm going to a store as often. And it did. It felt good to kind of hold that green. It feels a little dirty, the cash, but
I like
in a
all
good
of
way.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, so here's some things that you can buy that maybe are more aligned your values, your missions in terms of stocks or investments. And, specifically around what's going on with our crisis.
Okay.
So here's a few suggestions. So one is you can look for a mutual fund that pays dividends. And this would be specifically a value fund. And the purpose of this, so this is going to be a mutual fund made up of stocks that are more the stable, the tried and true, like the large energy companies, the large consumer product companies like Procter & Gamble, because the idea is that they're paying dividends or interest.
Okay. Mr. Carter, what's a mutual fund? Please.
Yes. A mutual fund is a group of stocks or a group of bonds.
Okay. Group
So
of
the
stocks
idea-
or a group of bonds, but not them together.
No, it can be them together too.
Oh, okay.
And that's called a balanced mutual fund. It's actually my favorite kind of mutual fund.
Okay.
Because it lets me take some risk, but it also lets me be safe. But the benefit of a mutual fund that pays dividends is that you make money two ways. One is that you make money just by the price of the mutual fund going up or down. And then the other way you make money is that the mutual fund pays dividends, which is like an interest rate. So it's a little helpful to do that right now because you're going to make a little extra cash.
Okay.
So if you're concerned about cash and you want to put more money in the sleep at night money, look for a value mutual fund that pays dividends. And you can find them at Vanguard. You can find them at Fidelity. I'll say that again.
Mutual fund, writing this down, that pays dividends.
Right.
So if I were to walk into Fidelity in Santa Monica and just say that, hi guys, yes, I'd like a donut and a cappuccino. They have great snacks there, by the way.
I know, of course.
And I just say, hi, I would like a value mutual fund that pays dividends. Just walk in, they will guide me to that.
Yes, absolutely.
It's that simple.
It is that simple. I don't want to promise that you're going to make a lot of money, but you're going to have a little more cash flow from it.
Because the dividends will be kicking into your account, correct?
Yes, exactly. So the key is if you really need the cash, here's another little tip, don't reinvest the dividends. So the dividends is like an interest payment. If you don't need the cash, you should tell them you want to reinvest the dividends. And that means they're going to continuously buy more every time it gets dividends. But if you need the cash, just say don't reinvest the dividends and put that cash into the money market account.
Yeah, that's a dividend reinvestment program, right?
Exactly.
I've heard that before. Okay.
Yep. So the other thing that you can do, if you see the market really, really going down, and we've had a few really down days, I'm going to admit something and don't think less of me, but that's the day that I actually go out and buy more investments.
I don't think less of you.
Thank you. So I'm not looking to take advantage of an opportunity, but I'm seeing that the market is really low. The market is tanked. And what I do is I actually buy the total stock market index mutual fund.
That's the S&P 500?
No, that's a separate one.
Okay.
The S&P 500 is just 500 stocks. So that's a great one to buy when the market's going down. But there's actually another mutual fund that's literally called the total stock market index. And it is a mutual fund that has every stock that's traded in the total stock market.
So if in the next few weeks things tank, grab your lady purse, get in the car, go down and get a total stock market index?
Yep, mutual fund.
Mutual fund. Okay.
And you can get that Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, my 3 favorite places.
You like to bank big too, right? So if you're, let's say you live in Connecticut, but you're going to Kansas, you want to be able to have a bank that you can go to an ATM there, right?
Well, yes and no. I actually like banking big for another reason. I like to bank big because if, God forbid, you run into a problem, I found the bigger bank in the past dealt with my bigger problem. Like, so for example, I had a client who had identity theft.
Oy.
I know, terrible. You feel so violated. It's horrible. But the bigger bank was able to support her a little bit better than I've seen with other banks.
Okay.
More importantly, I'm just a cheapskate and I want to go to a bank that doesn't charge me fees. So I want a bank that's not going to charge me ATM fees or banking fees or service fees.
Okay,
And the
so
bigger
the bigger
banks,
banks.
I think you can negotiate a little bit more with that. But there's some great credit unions too. We don't have great credit unions where I live, but I have a client in Colorado who has a great credit union. So I do like credit unions too. Let me give you one more tip to look at. So one of the other things that we saw with this recent crisis is energy was at stake, because I think people were worried about the price of oil. We saw it at the gas tank. So one of the things that I've been doing anyway, and this is an even more opportune time, is to look at clean energy mutual funds or clean energy ETFs.
Okay.
So the idea is that they're really going to provide a respite when traditional energy is at stake. And it's also good for the environment. So it makes you feel good also.
Okay. Also, another great thing is, well, I've found this calming, is to look up charities right now that can help with the world situation. And you can speak to that too, Galia, right? With it seems very calming. It's, again, that envelope of what we can control in the world right now is to go, all right, how can I be of service? How can I give? And there is a place to go to
Absolutely.
research these too, right?
So the first thing is, especially if you're on social media, you're going to see lots of charities that people are doing. So one of the things that I did, and this is because I'm a research nerd, is that when I saw a charity that I wasn't familiar with, I went on a great website called Charity Navigator.
Okay, hold on. CharityNavigator.com or
charitynavigator.org. And so what I could do is I could look up these charities that I was seeing in my social media and say, I've never heard of before this Razom, that's one of them, or United Help Ukraine. So what I did is I looked them up on Charity Navigator, number one, just to see if they were really a charity, if they were really a 501c3. And then second of all, I was personally looking for ones that were based in the United States because I just felt there's a little more transparency for me to feel comfortable with. Just making sure that it's based here and it's got the operations here. And then the other thing that you can look at, which is really, really cool, is you can see what percentage of their total dollars actually go towards the charity itself versus paying their administrative fees.
that's important because you don't want your charity CEO to be driving a Rolls Royce around some fancy place, right?
Right.
Don't they tell you too what the CEOs are paid?
They
I think
do.
that's
They actually
interesting.
list it. And so overall, I looked at for ones that had over 90% of the money going towards a charity. That was kind of my barometer. And by the way, Charity Navigator also rates it with stars. So it's out of 5 stars. So you can also just do a screening and say, I only want to look for ones that are 4 stars or higher. So that was something that I found really helpful. So I'm just going to give you a quick list of some charities that I found that are really focused on helping this crisis right now.
That's a great
Some of them
idea.
are huge ones, and then also just obviously smaller ones that are more focused. So there's Save the Children, there's CARE, there's Together Rising, which is Glennon Doyle's charity that's really focused on helping people in Ukraine. There's RASM for Ukraine. There's also United Help Ukraine. And then the other one that I found is CNN Impact had a whole list of charities that they were researching and they found. And I still double checked them against Charity Navigator, but I found that that's a really great source, and they were updating them continuously.
God, that's such a great thing to do right now, is just to, let's make sure we have 90 days supply of money at least set aside, and let's donate, right? These are all things that can make our shoulders drop and allow us to take a deep breath.
Yeah. And just a few more tips, because there's a lot going on. So if you really feel like you're in trouble or you just need some help, is number one, while interest rates are going up, interest rates are still pretty low overall. So maybe this is a good time to refinance. Like if you have a loan with a higher interest rate, just maybe consider refinancing before interest rates continuously increase. That's number one.
Is it a good time to buy a house right now when they go up?
Well, it tends to that when interest rates go up, home prices go down.
Right.
I think if you don't own a home and this is your first time home purchase, I still believe in buying a home. I still think it's a good time.
That is the thing that's going to be the name of your book, Galia. Galia says everybody needs to buy a home.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Look, very rarely do people lose money on their home. Very, very rarely, right?
Right.
And what I do see, and this is working with hundreds and thousands of people who own a home, and I'm not talking about the wealthy, I'm talking about the middle class. People who own a home have more financial security, have more confidence, have a higher net worth.
Interesting.
I've just seen it over and over and over. And again, I'm not talking about millions and millions. I'm talking about the middle class. So I'm just putting that out there. And then lastly, which I recently read and I thought, oh, this is really interesting, is stay connected, especially if you're having financial hardship. And there's two ways. Like, I'm not saying call your neighbor and ask them for money. I don't mean that. But I'm saying that if you are having some serious financial hardship, is reach out to a religious organization. Because I know for me, like my religious organization actually reached out to me and said, hey, we've got some money set aside for members in need.
That
I hadn't
is
even
lovely.
thought about that.
Wow.
So number one, let your community know, like especially if there's a Facebook page for your community. I think if it's an unusual circumstance, it's okay to reach out. And more importantly, just getting the support, not feeling alone.
That's great. That's wonderful. Good to know. Well, we have a letter. Are we ready for that?
We do.
Guys, if you have a letter for us, we would love to read it on the air. Go to fiscalfirecrackers.com. There's a place on the top left. You can click on it and write us a letter, and we are here for you. So here we go.
Want more pecuniary pleasure? Let's read a letter.
You know what I miss in 2022, Galia?
What do you miss?
I miss the sound of a real letter opening. You know, these emails, I mean, you're lucky to even get a ding. I miss the sound of a crackly, crunchy letter opening. Hey, Ethan, can you help me out? Hello, Fiscal Firecrackers. My wife recently started a new job and had to fill out a ton of new hire paperwork for her company. It had all the usual tax questions on it, but when it said, how many allowances would you like to claim? We never knew what to put down. Would you mind explaining what this means? And when do you claim more than 0? Hopefully not committing tax fraud. Love, Jack. Okay, Jack. Great question.
It is a great question. And believe it or not, when I teach my college class, I literally am teaching them how to fill out the tax forms with the allowances. So it is such an important question that it's something that we're never taught. So I'm literally teaching to my college students and says, when you start your first job, here's what to fill out. So there's two answers to that. So let me just quickly explain about allowances. So essentially it's a guideline to the amount of how much income tax you want your employer to take out of your paycheck.
Okay.
And this is another inverse relationship. The more allowances you claim, the fewer taxes are taken out. And vice versa. So if you claim 3, 4, 5 allowances, they're going to take out fewer taxes. So you're going to get a bigger paycheck.
Is that children? Is that what it means? 3 or 4 children?
No, but yes. But the idea, so here, and I'll tell you how you calculate that. And opposite, if you just put 0 or 1, you're going to get a lot of taxes taken out.
Okay.
So how do you determine what to take out? And by the way, they're changing the rules as we're speaking. So it's actually not even called allowances anymore, but it's the same philosophy. So here's what you want to ask yourself. Number 1, are you married or are you not? Are you truly filing single or are you married? And if you're married, is your spouse a freelancer, which means that they don't have taxes taken out? They're usually just getting paid a gross amount.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they're a freelancer that sometimes works part-time or full-time. Like there's lots of, and that's a really important question if you're married. And then the last one is, do you have children?
Okay, so you would say, what would I put? So I'm married, we're both actors, and we have 1 child. So I put number 3, and plus my lucky number is 27, so I add 27 to it. So do I put 30? I won! What did I put? I won 30. I put 30. Is that right? Did I win?
So if you don't have tax, so if you put 28 or 30, you're not going to have a lot of taxes taken out. But if you owe the taxes, that's not good because then you're going to have a higher tax bill and you might have penalties because you underpaid your taxes.
Okay, so we want to be, of course, legit and legal and do this in a very
absolutely. So the question is, when you are paid, do they take taxes out of your paycheck or how they pay you?
Well, we're both corporations.
So, but it's not like they take the taxes out. You take the taxes out.
Correct.
Okay. So if you're taking the taxes out, then you probably want to have fewer allowances because the tax is already taken out.
Okay.
So that's number 1. The second thing that you want to understand is really just children. So yes, if it's 1 child, it's 1-to-1. It's usually like that. 2 children, or do you just have dependents? Now, the new forms to
what
fill out.
What about older parents? Can I ask about that? What about if you, my parents do not live with me, but if I did have those as dependents, what about people that are taking care of the sandwich generation, taking care of children? And
I think if you're financially taking care of your parents, like if you're truly spending money on them, then yes, you could claim that as a dependent. Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So the new W-4 form is actually much more straightforward. So they're not necessarily claiming allowances, but you can claim dependents. So if you have children or an older parent, but you actually fill out the form if your spouse is a freelancer or how the income is. So, and I was actually looking through it just to kind of understand it. They ask you 3 or 4 questions that are actually really straightforward. And it's really just about your income and how the taxes are taken out.
Okay. Very, very helpful. Okay. So we're going to get through this time together, hand in hand. And let's recap some stuff we learned today because my head is exploding with so much great information.
Open your ears and a money market account. It's time for Galia's Dollars and Cents.
Number 1 thing that I love is have at least 3 months of an emergency fund in cash set aside. Sleep at night money, right?
Well, it's 3 months, and I would take it a little bit longer, but it's not just the 3 month savings, but it's just more importantly, really looking at your cash flow for the next 3 months. So it's really saying, what am I getting paid? What do I have to spend? And what's already in the bank? And really doing that for the next 3 months.
Great. And if you feel like you're getting squeezed a little bit, sell a little crumb of something. Not the whole, don't sell the farm, but just a little crumb of something so you get that little padding right now, right?
I've been suggesting that tip for so many years when the market would go down and my clients would call me freaking out. And I'm like, okay, practically, non-emotionally, don't sell anything, but I get it that you want to do something because you feel like you're in free fall. So sell a little bit, just a little bit that's not going to really affect you, but you feel like you're doing something. But while you're selling, look at your investments and say, what can I reallocate and rebalance also?
Great, because that just gives you forward momentum and movement, which makes you feel good. And then we're going to, when we can, Instacart stuff, have our groceries delivered. We're not going to put gas in our car, drive to the grocery store, buy Pop-Tarts we don't need, and cranberries and pomegranates and stuff we don't even need. We're just going to sit at home, Instacart exactly what the recipe calls for, and let them pay for the gas. Let them deliver it to us. And then we'll use
Exactly.
that hour to build our business, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can also look for some investments. If the market is going down and you want to take advantage of the opportunity, you can say, let me buy the total stock market index fund. Let me buy the Vanguard S&P 500 fund, or just an S&P 500 fund. Or let me look for a mutual fund or an ETF that's really aligned with my mission and my goals, such as clean energy, or something that's really related to what we call socially responsible investing, that's maybe helping me kind of deal with like traditional energies at stake. What else can I do that I feel in control of?
Right. That's wonderful. And I know, too, if anybody is completely desperate, just to reach out to someone, that they're not alone. I know the Screen Actors Guild, which I'm part of that union, has an actors fund set up for actors that are sort of down on their luck and need assistance. So there's always a place to go, whether it be your synagogue or a church or someplace, right, that you can reach out and still be prideful and just say, hey, I'm going through a hard time.
Right, absolutely. Or just listen to this podcast over and over too, and hopefully we'll
'Cause
hold
it's
your hand
free.
through it. Yes, it is free, and we'll hold your hand through it.
We're here for you. Wonderful. Oh, Galia, thank you so much. Learned so much today. I think we have to end this with saying that it's always important to talk about our feelings and our finances, especially during a crisis.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, The Fiscal Firecrackers. While this podcast contains information about finances and investments, financial results discussed herein are not necessarily typical and are not a guarantee of future success. The creators of this podcast make no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. The podcast should not be considered professional advice and is not a substitute for a financial planner or investment banker. Please seek professional guidance and do your own research before investing. You can't say I didn't tell you.